Welcome back to this next lesson on designing network solutions. We're going to be talking about solutions for hybrid networks. Now, solutions plural is a bit of a misnomer because Microsoft says use ExpressRoute. Of course, your other option is a VPN gateway, which is the original hybrid network option, and you can actually use VPN gateways with ExpressRoute as well. They'll work in tandem. So ExpressRoute is Azure's favorite solution for extending on-premise networks. By extending an on-premise network, we mean you can actually extend your IP space into Azure. A number of solutions support this. For example, VMware's NSXT can do this so that you can actually have IP addresses that you have locally defined on-prem function in Azure as well. ExpressRoute also extends beyond the Azure space, which will allow connections to any other Microsoft service like Office 365. So there are three primary types of connectivity when talking about ExpressRoute. The first, Cloud Exchange, and this is if you're using a colo. So you can connect Azure with the Ethernet exchange provided by your colocation facility. And that's basically just ExpressRoute running from their facility to Azure as opposed to your home facility to Azure. You still have to connect to your colo in whatever fashion you're going to, and that could be any number of ways. It could be fiber, direct, of course, another VPN from just whatever your ISP is to the colo. But essentially, it's ExpressRoute running from the colocation. Your next option is point-to-point, and that is connecting on-premise data centers to Azure via a point-to-point ExpressRoute link. And that is a dedicated connection, so that'll just be one physical location per ExpressRoute link to Azure. Last is connecting your wide area network to Azure, and this will be using some service provider. And this will give all of your wide area network connected offices and data centers the same connection to Azure. So basically, if you have an office in Tokyo, an office in New York, and an office in Melbourne, Australia, and you have a any-to-any connection with ExpressRoute, all three of those offices will have the same connection to Azure as all the rest of them. This is a very good option if you have offices, much like Cloud Guru does, spread out all over the world. Some things to keep in mind when using ExpressRoute. First off, we'll talk about the good stuff. Not that any of it's bad. So you're using Layer 3 connectivity and security standards. Azure takes care of this for you. Now, some network gurus don't like that they are restricted to Layer 3. There are quite a few people that like to do that deeper packet inspection, but Azure doesn't allow for that. However, the Layer 3 security standards from Azure are pretty solid and will eliminate a lot of worry. ExpressRoute can support up to 100 gigabits bandwidth. That is an expensive option, a very expensive option, because you're not only paying for the bandwidth capabilities of ExpressRoute, you're paying for the bandwidth from your ISP as well. That said, it's very good for high-speed and critical business operations. You'll find that ExpressRoute connections make things like disaster recovery or business continuity options more flexible because you have a higher performing data connection in an ExpressRoute circuit than you would with a simple VPN gateway. All right, so you're planning out an ExpressRoute use. One thing to remember is that it is complicated. You have to collaborate with your service provider, and very often you may find that you have to lay in extra circuits on your on-prem environment. This may actually, if you're working with a colo, if they don't have it, they'll have to put in circuits as well, and that's an even deeper layer of hassle, really. But you have to remember that you're going to be dealing with Microsoft, and you're going to be dealing with your ISP, and possibly, again, if you're putting in new circuits, you may be dealing with your telco as well. So your on-premise installation of high bandwidth routers is necessary. Now, I've seen either actual physical appliances brought in for this, but I've also seen people use a on-prem hypervisor, VMware, for example, or Hyper-V and install virtual routers. But any way you look at it, these are going to be very, very resource intensive and rather pricey to license. All right, you need to remember that the ISP is the one who manages the ExpressRoute circuit. Now we're talking about the physical connection. So if your ISP experiences what we used to call a backhoe fade, somebody's digging around somewhere and breaks a physical circuit, then that's your ISP's problem to fix or to deal with, not Microsoft. Azure maintains the ExpressRoute tunnel, but the actual circuits belong to the ISPs. ExpressRoute does not support HSRP, Hot Standby Router Protocol. It is not used. Generally isn't used for Azure at all, in my experience. You're going to be using Border Gateway. Border Gateway is most commonly used for VPNs as well. So remember, if you happen to run into this in the exam, and if you see ExpressRoute and Border Gateway Protocol in the same section, then make sure that you eliminate HSRP as an option. ExpressRoute does not use it. Because of the layer 3 connectivity, you're going to have to install a network security appliance for any threat mitigation. So again, the layer 3, because it limits what you can kind of do out of the gate, so to speak, you're going to have an appliance to watch network traffic. Said appliances need to be placed between your ISP's edge routers and your on-premise network. This is really no surprise. You're going to put, firewalls and the like, between edge routers and your on-prem network anyway. That's pretty common, and it doesn't let up just because you're using ExpressRoute. And your connectivity monitoring requires the Azure Connectivity Toolkit. You can use some other tools as well, but as far as Azure service offerings go, Connectivity Toolkit is going to be your go-to. Again, you're sort of limited to what you can do with layer 3. Some connectivity monitoring will actually get into layer 2, and if you can't use it, then you're going to go back to the Azure Connectivity Toolkit. All right, so that's it for hybrid networks. It's not that complicated. Just remember the rules by which ExpressRoute is used, and you should be fine in whatever you might run into in the exam. I'll have some links in the resource section for things like VPN gateway SKUs. You're not going to have to memorize those, but it's good to know what the general capabilities are if you run into any sort of cost assessment questions regarding ExpressRoute or VPN gateways. And that's it. We'll see you in the next video.